Welcome to Historic Adventures. Today, we are exploring Mount Grace Priory. We hope you enjoy this journey with us. Mount Grace Priory stands as the most impeccably preserved of the 9 Carthusian monasteries established in medieval England. Founded in 1398 by Thomas de Holland, the Duke of Surrey and nephew of Richard II, it exemplifies the era's fervour for piety and austere living. Please don't forget to drop us a like and consider subscribing. Thanks. Unlike other monastic orders, Carthusians led lives of near hermitage, spending the majority of their time in solitude within their individual cells. Mount Grace Priory, one of Yorkshire's last monasteries, was suppressed in December 1539. In the 17th century, the ruins of its guest house were transformed into a mansion, which saw further extensions and restorations in the early 20th century, adopting the arts and crafts style. The late medieval Carthusian monasteries in England, known as charter houses, were established by courtiers and soldiers who had prospered from the wars with France. The Charter House of the Assumption of the Virgin and St. Nicholas, or Mount Grace of Ingleby, was founded around April 1398 by Thomas de Holland, the 6th Earl of Kent and Duke of Surrey, who was also the nephew of Richard II. This establishment, located at his manor of Bawdelby, was a collaboration with his tenants, John and Eleanor Ingleby. Thomas de Holland founded the Charter House out of his deep devotion to the Carthusian order. His uncle, Richard II, and his relative by marriage, Jan Visconti, Duke of Milan, and founder of the renowned Charter House of Pavia, were also strong supporters of the Carthusians. To support this new community, Holland acquired an estate comprised of confiscated alien priories, English priories that were offshoots of French abbeys, and had been seized by the Crown during the 100 Years' War from Richard II. The immense wealth and influence of the founder appeared to guarantee the priory's prosperity, but this security was fleeting. Richard II was deposed in 1399, and Thomas de Holland was executed in 1400, following a failed coup against Henry IV, leaving the young priory without a patron. Subsequently, both Henry IV and his successor, Henry V, began reclaiming the grants of alien priories. Henry V notably using these assets to endow his own charter house at Sheen in Surrey. With the loss of their patron, the monks of Mount Grace faced an uncertain future. Fortunately, Thomas Beaufort, Duke of Exeter and half-brother of Henry IV, took an interest in their plight. In 1415, he persuaded Henry V to restore the priory's endowment incrementally. Beaufort's vision was to transform Mount Grace into his mausoleum, adding 5 monks to pray for him. Upon his death in 1429, he was interred there, effectively becoming the priory's second founder. Following Thomas Beaufort's burial, the monks of Mount Grace began to accept burials for other lay individuals. They also conducted obituary masses for those interred elsewhere, which garnered significant local support and led to generous land grants. Mount Grace's heavy dependence on alien priory estates, typically granted only for the duration of ongoing hostilities with France, coupled with the absence of a major patron following Beaufort's death, meant that the Charterhouse's future remained perpetually uncertain. In this context of uncertainty, Edward IV intervened to support Mount Grace. In 1462, he granted the Priory the manor of Atherstone in Warwickshire to alleviate its impoverished state. In 1471, he further endowed the Priory with estates in Richmond, Yorkshire, previously owned by the French Monastery of Begard, to establish a chantry for the Royal House of York. In the 1520s, Henry, Lord Clifford, emerged as a significant benefactor, financing land acquisitions and a major campaign to construct additional monks' cells. Another notable patron was Sir John Rawson, a London merchant and member of the Knights Hospitaller. Before participating in the Siege of Rhodes in 1522, Rawson funded the construction of Le Inn, a hostel for travellers at Mount Grace. From Prior John Wilson's letters to Lord Clifford, it is evident that by 1523 there was a waiting list of aspiring Carthusians eager to join the order. Despite Mount Grace's uncertain endowments, it remained a relatively prosperous house towards the end of its existence. The Valor Ecclesiasticus of 1534-5, a comprehensive survey of all church property commissioned by Henry VIII, valued Mount Grace's estates at £323 per year. Though the Carthusians were prominent in the early opposition to Henry VIII's divorce from Catherine of Aragon and the subsequent break with Rome, Mount Grace remained relatively undisturbed during the initial years of the Reformation. The monks of Mount Grace refrained from participating in the Pilgrimage of Grace, the popular uprising that erupted in Yorkshire in the autumn of 1536, in response to the suppression of the lesser monasteries. When Mount Grace was finally suppressed in December 1539, the community received generous pensions. The prior was granted the hermitage and chapel of the Mount in nearby Osmotherley, properties belonging to the Priory. He, along with one of his monks and 2 lay brothers, later joined the Charterhouse of Sheen when it was refounded under Mary I in 1555. In February 1540, Mount Grace was leased to John Cheney, but the lease was acquired the following year by Sir James Strangways of East Halsey Castle. Strangways also purchased Morton Grange, a nearby farm of Rievaulx Abbey that had been leased to Mount Grace since 1509. Upon his death in 1544, Mount Grace passed to Ralph Rokeby. In 1616, his granddaughter Grace married Conyers, Lord Darcy of Nath, and Mount Grace became part of her marriage settlement. It was likely Lord Darcy, referred to in records as of Mount Grace, who significantly modified the Priory's guest range to create a residence. In 1653, Grace's son, another Conyers Darcy, sold the capital messuage, indicating the presence of a house, of Mount Grace, along with the site of the late dissolved monastery, to Thomas Lascelles. In 1744, the Reverend Robert Lascelles sold Mount Grace, which had been tenanted since 1701, to Timothy Maulever of Arncliffe Hall. The estate then passed to the antiquary William Brown, who, in 1898, sold it to the industrialist Sir Isaac Lothian Bell. Sir Isaac Lothian Bell, 1816–1904, residing at nearby Rounton Grange, was initially approached by the Society for the Protection of Ancient Buildings to establish a trust to acquire the Arncliffe estate, aiming to safeguard the fragile ruins of the Charter House and the succeeding 17th century mansion. However, Bell's interest was so profound that he decided to purchase the estate himself. In 1900, he commenced the repair and extension of the house, as well as the stabilization of the ruins. The Bell family retained ownership of Mount Grace until 1953, when it was transferred to the Treasury in lieu of death duties and subsequently given to the National Trust. In 1955, the National Trust placed the Priory ruins under state guardianship. Unlike monks of other orders, who typically drank beer, the Carthusians adhered to a monastic rule that required them to drink water at least 3 days a week. Mount Grace boasted an elaborate drinking water supply. 3 springs on the hillside above the Priory were harnessed by well houses, providing water to the great cloister cells, the lay brothers' cells, and the inner court, which included the guest house. We hope you've enjoyed our tour so far. Now, let's delve into the supernatural activity associated with Mount Grace Priory. Throughout its long history, Mount Grace Priory has been a site of spiritual reflection and monastic life. However, it has also been the setting for numerous reports of ghostly encounters and unexplained phenomena. One of the most famous tales is that of a spectral monk. Visitors have reported seeing a figure in a monk's robe silently wandering the cloisters and gardens. This apparition is believed to be a Carthusian monk from the Priory's early days, eternally bound to the place he once called home. In the Priory's ancient cells, guests have experienced sudden drops in temperature and an eerie feeling of being watched. Some have even heard faint, disembodied chanting, as if the monks' prayers from centuries past still echo through the walls. The Priory Church, a site of profound reverence, is also known for its supernatural activity. On quiet evenings, some have claimed to witness shadowy figures near the altar, moving as if in silent prayer. Perhaps the most chilling accounts come from the nearby woodland. Local legends speak of a grey lady who roams the forest at dusk. This ghostly figure is said to be the spirit of a woman who sought refuge at the Priory but met a tragic end. As we continue our journey through Mount Grace Priory, keep an open mind. The history here is rich, and the stories, whether rooted in reality or the imagination, add to the mystique of this remarkable place. Mount Grace Priory is conveniently located just off the A19, making it easily accessible by car. If you're driving from York, take the A19 north for about 30 miles. For those coming from Middlesbrough, head south on the A19 for approximately 15 miles. Ample parking is available on-site for visitors. If you prefer public transportation, there are several options to consider. The nearest train station is Northallerton, which is about 8 miles away from the Priory. Regular trains run to Northallerton from major cities such as York, Newcastle and London. From Northallerton Station, you can take a taxi or catch a local bus to Mount Grace Priory. For bus travellers, local bus services connect the Priory with nearby towns and villages. Check the latest schedules and routes online to find the most convenient option for your journey. Cycling enthusiasts will be pleased to know that Mount Grace Priory is accessible by bike, with scenic routes leading through the beautiful North Yorkshire landscape. Bike racks are available on site for secure parking. Once you arrive, you'll find a visitor centre where you can purchase tickets and get more information about the Priory. The friendly staff are always ready to assist with any questions you might have. We hope this guide helps make your journey to Mount Grace Priory smooth and enjoyable. Whether you're travelling by car, train, bus, or bike, the experience of exploring this historic site is well worth the trip. Thank you for joining us on this journey to Mount Grace Priory. We hope you found this video informative. Don't forget to drop us a comment, give us a like, and subscribe for more content. Our social links are in the description. See you in the next one.